Hello, my name is Arlene McGuire. I am an author. I write poetry. I'm a voiceover artist, and I do some artwork with acrylic and oil paintings. I have retired from the workforce, but I began writing poetry. And I'd done in the past, but I went full-fledged into it, and I am doing some artwork, acrylic art, painting, and I'm a voiceover artist. I have been for many years, so I revamped, and this is part of my revamping my voiceover career. So basically, I do poetry. I published one book, and I have a second book in the works now to be published, and that's who I am.
Awesome. So you're creative, probably like a Renaissance woman, maybe.
Unbeknownst to me, I suppose. That's just showed up in my life. That's what we want to call folks as myself. I didn't think of that because I'm older, so it feels like I may have missed the boat or the calling, but it's here now. So I'm embracing it, and if that's what one would identify me as, I'd be happy to take that.
Because you're multifaceted and you're doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
So in the things that you're doing, your poetry, how did you come about being a poet, and what do you talk about in your poetry?
I think my poetry is really simplistic, that I cover many age groups, young adult forward, young adult up. They're really poems about everyday life, things that happen to us, occurrences. For example, there's a poem called The Handkerchief. Nobody even remembers what that is, so that would go to the older people like myself. They could relate to that poem. There are some poems about love, about romance, about sexual and erectile dysfunction, which plagues everybody. Christmas, birthdays, holidays. I write across the board that the feeling just comes, or something will trigger an idea, and I start writing. So that's pretty much how it goes.
And so you've written a book.
Yes. It's called Hanging Out in the Quiet. It's dedicated to my mom because many of the things I wrote prior to that time were now a book. It was that volume. And she passed away, and I thought this would make me feel better to do something that she really would have liked to see me accomplish. So yes, I went forward to publishing that with C. Nathaniel Brown of EX3 Entertainment. So yeah, I'm thankful for that. The second book is now the travail between having lost her and coming forward 7 years without her, and the writing filled me up. I wasn't able to pick up the phone and cry to her anymore, so it came out in the writing. The other event that put a closeness on hanging out in the quiet with my mom is that I came down with the same cancer that she had. And she survived 7 years, and then she left, and so that made the hanging out in the quiet part of it when I go to see her at Floral Hills really big and really special. So many of the things in the book she had never heard, she did not hear, and I thought that times when I would go and just sit there and read them, she would enjoy it that way. So that's Hanging Out in the Quiet. The second one is Beyond the Moon. Again, I stayed in the vein of everyday life. Just things that make you mad, or something you see that you think is totally idiotic. I'll write what my feelings were about that event or that word or that picture to keep it interesting. I didn't want to put myself in a box to write noir or things that were risque. Well, yeah, I get risque sometimes. But yeah, I wanted to just touch everything that I saw. Is why I write that way. Yeah.
So, and there you have in your books, I don't know about the second one, but the Hanging Out in the Quiet. So there's a story and then there's the poem. How is it structured?
Yes, that I really don't remember how that evolved into that, but I did it once with one poem, and then the poem didn't cover all I had to say, or all I thought. I couldn't put all I had to say in poetry form. I don't rhyme, it's prose, so it was difficult, and I could. So I started writing it anyway, and it became a narrative where I was just telling why I wrote that, or why, how I explained the feelings written in the poem, and I kept doing it, and it ended up being a story for every poem, or how it evolved, or why that kind of thing. The second book doesn't have that. There are many more poems in the second one. I think I did better with just making the poem complete, whether it was long or short. It was the poem, and that's all I had to say. So I left no stories.
Okay. So, so you go into your other areas that you practice in or that you create in. You're a painter.
I started that in 2014 by going to a class at Michael's, the hobby store, and the class, I only had one class. The class was canceled after that, and so I was on my own. So I started playing around with paint and brushes and melting crayons and wasting nail polish and little pieces of and it was so much fun. And I expanded it and just enjoyed the process. And then putting them up on the wall in my house, and like, oh my God, I did that. And you do another one, or you try, and then there is an acrylic pouring segment or many videos on YouTube, DIYs that I watch, and then I try to do what they've done. And that became really rewarding. I just kept doing it. It feels as though some of this creativity has always been there, but I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know how to make it, how to bring it out of myself. So the writing was always there. It was very good. I was a very good essay writer in school and doing compositions, as we used to call them. So I knew I could write. The art, however, is a gift from my father. And our country, in Jamaica, West Indies, I grew up watching my dad on a scaffolding way up in the sky as he created billboards. What we have digitally now, I knew that he stood on a ladder for days and created billboards that I would pass by. So that kind of art, and then he did a mural in my mom's home, in my mom's apartment in the Bronx. And it was just so wonderful to sit there and look at that. A seashore and the moon, and it was great. So it's in me, but I never thought I could do it. And then my mother created, now remember my mom, you don't know, my mom was handicapped. She did not have the use of this arm, fingers, nothing. And she created a picture of two hummingbirds in a tree, one hand, and it was so beautiful. She gave it to me before she passed.
Wow.
And so it sits in a place where I'm always reminded of her next to her picture. And every time I think, I can't do this, I don't want to do this, I go, she had one hand and she didn't get busy.
No excuses, huh?
Exactly.
And so, then a vocal artist?
Yeah, I've been doing voiceover for many years, but unfortunately I'm one of those failed voiceover people. I didn't have the wherewithal to forcefully get into it or really go after it. In essence, one would say I didn't have the hunger. Because first of all, that was putting yourself on stage. And I wasn't taught to do that. You needed to be quiet. That's my era. So I didn't pursue it. When I did, I didn't know how the business side of it should be. And you don't have a lot of help if you didn't go to school and all of that for it. So my efforts were my own to just record things. I did one job that I was paid for, and my big adventure was to be the narrator of a book by author Barbara Berry called Clothesline Blues. And an app was created where the vertical reading room was where I read. And it did very well, but the company did not pursue it. And so I went back on my own again, studied with everybody you can think of. But again, the drive. But now people say, well, you have a great voice. you make us relax. You help us to be, and I'm encouraged by that. And so I feel with this, with what I'm building now is where I get to pursue this line of thought by putting poems that people can listen to. I created an ASMR segment where if you need to relax or if you need to sleep, you can listen to these. And hopefully down the road, I'll make it a business. And that will suffice my heart that I did use my voice. Another thing about my voice, if my mom were to enter and start speaking, you would think I was over there. She sounded just as I do. It was the funniest thing in my youth when people called, her friends would call, and I'd grab the phone, and they would start, "Oh, Sister Thelma, oh, Thelma, or Mrs. Markland," and I'm going, no, it's not her, it's Val, it's me. And they would I sound just like her. So I feel that this now is the way I honor the gift she gave me. My dad sang, she spoke, so I have a lot of that is still here that I can put to use to help somebody. And the best part of what's coming to fruition is knowing that somewhere down the ages, somebody's going to hear this and say, she encouraged me, or she helped me figure out what I could do with the purpose in me. And that's my big goal.
So speaking of that, so tell us then, I think you did just now, what is your purpose? What's your motivation? Why do you do what you do?
I remember my mother and my grandmother as the person who was always there when you hit rock bottom. She had words. She'd bring you back, no matter how drastic it was. And grandmothers just really hug you a lot, but and they both prayed. But I think what I saw her do was to work with the young people in our church and living in New York, they were coming from not too wonderful homes. And many of them were kept on the straight and narrow by her talks, by her Sunday school class. I think that's my burden. I believe I would say about myself, I have a servant's heart, and however I can serve somebody through a conversation or a recorded piece or just giving them some line of direction, how to go prayerfully to yourself and say, what do you want to do? What do you want to wake up every day and do? There's one thing. Some people have more than one, but there's one thing in every person that you just want to wake up and do that and feel fulfilled by it. It's not the job. It's not a career. That may be as well. But I think something creative, something that even singing in the shower, record yourself singing in the shower. Now you can do that. Put it on YouTube. People might like it. There may be someone who sounds just like you, and they will enjoy coming and singing, listening to you sing. So I feel that's where the drive of what my purpose is to say something that is going to help somebody listening or viewing or whatever to understand you have something you can share, and you should not take it home with you. Leave something behind. That's my favorite thing from the movie The Accountant. The song, the theme song. That song just makes it important that I do something that somebody will remember and think about themselves, how they can make themselves better or even help themselves achieve some very small semblance of greatness, because we're all given that.